Hey everybody, this week we were in the fifth week, I think, maybe sixth week, of our series called King, where we're studying the life of David. Our main text was 2 Samuel 5, 1 through 13, so not that big of a text, so if you want, it'd be good for you to read it as a group. And what we covered in this section was kind of our first glimpse into this dark side of David's personality. So far, David's been annoyingly good. He does everything right. He always responds the right way. And so he's not super relatable in a lot of ways at this point. But finally at this point in 2 Samuel 5, we begin to see some chinks in David's armor that will eventually lead to this massive fall from grace that we see in David's life. So the big idea is probably three of them. The first big idea was that words create reality. I think a lot of times we think that words just describe reality. Words just tell us what things already exist. But what we see in this story, like we see in Genesis 1, is that words actually make things exist. Words create reality. Second big idea was that we have a tendency to exclude inconvenient people. Right? We see David do this kind of accidentally in our text in 2 Samuel 5. And then finally we see that Jesus, in this case 1,000 years later, marches into Jerusalem and he cleans up David's mess. And in the same way, thanks be to God, Jesus marches into our lives, and even if it takes 1,000 years, he cleans up our messes. So questions for us. Little setup on this first one. David says something careless and hateful about the blind and the lame in this kind of angry, heated moment. And it results in this reality in Jerusalem where the blind and lame were excluded. They were not allowed in the palace, and they weren't allowed in the temple. And those, of course, are the two kind of centers of belonging in an ancient city. And the blind and lame weren't allowed to go there for 1,000 years. So first question, why is it important to know that our words don't just describe reality? No, our words are so powerful that they actually create reality. And why would that be important for us to know? Second, can you share a time that you experienced the destructive power of words? Maybe it was a time where somebody said something hateful to you and it created a really negative reality in your life, or maybe a time you said something hateful to somebody else and you saw it happen to them. Next question, why does it feel so good to talk bad about other people, right? And it does. Maybe I'm the only one, but it feels so good to talk bad about other people. And why is that? Why do you think we enjoy that so much? Final question along that line is, what excuses do we use to justify our hateful, angry speech, even though the Bible so clearly condemns it? Right? The Bible is really clearly said. In almost every book of the Bible, we're told how to talk. And it's gentle, kind, honest, not hateful or angry. And yet we constantly speak hatefully and angrily, and we justify it. And so what excuses do you tend to use to justify the nasty way that you talk sometimes? Second line of questions. We talked a lot about how we treat inconvenient people, because David, of course, treats the blind and the lame, who are very inconvenient people in the ancient world, in a really, really terrible way. And so tell us about a time where you were the inconvenient person in a situation. It's happened to all of us. And so how did that make you feel to be the person who, for whatever reason, didn't quite fit in, or you stuck out for the wrong reasons, right? So tell us about a time you were the inconvenient person. Second, what people are inconvenient to you or inconvenient to us? And then why are those people inconvenient to you or us? And again, here you could go with a really surface level answer, but try to dig deep and give a deeper answer. We've all got people, and you might be ashamed of it, and that's okay, who are inconvenient to us for whatever reasons. Don't just say my mother-in-law, right? Give us more than that. Next question, why do we have a tendency to exclude inconvenient people even though we're not doing it on purpose, right? Most of us really don't try to exclude people who are inconvenient for us, but it just ends up happening. And so why is that? That even though we don't try to, inconvenient people get excluded by us. Final question along that line, how can we work to include the inconvenient people in our lives? All right, last kind of line of questions. 1,000 years after David marched into Jerusalem and he turned it into this place where the blind and lame were excluded, Jesus, of course, marches into Jerusalem and he makes it a place of acceptance and inclusion for the blind and lame. That's Matthew 21, this awesome parallel to the 2 Samuel text. Now, can you think of a time when Jesus marched in, maybe years later, and cleaned up one of your messes? Last question, what's a mess that you need Jesus to help you clean up? something where you've tried to get your act together and you realize there's no hope and you get your act together, you need Jesus to come in and help you clean up some sort of mess you made. So hope those are some good kind of thoughtful questions for discussion and that you guys and girls are enjoying the series, and I'll see you on Sunday.